Well, hello, lovely humans, and welcome back to another episode of the Lovely Humans Club podcast. Cue cheesy song. Dun, 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 dun. Yep. Hey, if you're new here, my name is Jamie Wolfer. Welcome to my corner of the interwebs. I'm a wedding planner turned content creator who can't seem to keep herself away from microphones and or cameras. So we created a podcast called the Lovely Humans Club podcast, where lovely humans have a club. And we talk about things that are lovely and good and wonderful and sometimes really honest and really raw. And in today's episode, we are going to be going over a little homeschool Q&A that I posted on Instagram last week, which, by the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, that's like the most active platform for me. So I highly suggest you jump on over there and give me a follow, because that's where you're going to see like more day-to-day content and also memes that I'm really interested in. Because your girl loves sharing tweets on Instagram like an adult. And it's at the Jamie Wolfer, because Jamie Wolfer's already taken, even though I can't find who owns that account, because I would be like, hey, do you want $500 and I could buy this account from you? I can't find him. So I'm the Jamie Wolfer over on Instagram, which sounds really vain, in my opinion, but I'm stuck with it now. So here we are. Anyhoodles, over on Instagram, I asked you guys, what are some questions you have about homeschooling? Because we kind of like backwards fell into this. If you missed the homeschooling episode last week, I kind of talked about this origin story, but I'll give you a quick little recap. Basically, 2020 hit. All the kids were sent home. My husband was unemployed at the time, and so he took over homeschooling, and he was homeschooled, and he was like, this ain't it. This is not right. And so we decided that at the beginning of sixth grade, we were going to launch into doing an independent curriculum with the kids, not through the public school, because he was like, homeschooling is so much easier than this. Like, they are making this really complicated and this is all just busy work. So that's when we officially got started, was I think like September of 2020. And now here we are in September of 2024, still going strong. Well, I don't know about strong is the right word. We just started like last week, where we are limping in a forward direction. So I will tell you, I do not confess to be any sort of homeschooling expert at all whatsoever. If you're new or you have no idea who I am, I'm an entrepreneur. I run multiple YouTube channels. I have a wedding planning business, although that's pretty much on hold right now because I also have a spicy baby who still nurses to sleep. And honestly, I'm too frightened to figure out how to break that habit because she's so spicy. And I also have a couple of online courses. I got a lot of things going on. So to figure out how to get homeschooling to incorporate into our lives and still maintain my livelihood, it was a feat, you know? So that's why I asked you guys over on Instagram what questions you have. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. Okay, but before we launch into the episode, I want to give a quick shout out to this week's 5-star review. And this one, I'm not going to lie, makes me a little bit emotional because it's from my aunt that I didn't even know was listening to this podcast. Jamie, you are such a light and a joy to listen to. Your podcasts are informative, heartfelt, and often hilarious. I look forward to hearing what you have to say each week. I'm so proud of all your successes and can't wait to hear what you're going to talk about next. Love you tons. Hi, I adore you. Thank you for being here. Shoot, I didn't know that it was you until I opened that one. You guys, if you feel like leaving a 5-star review, I mean, you may not make me cry like Christy did, but if you feel like doing that, you can do it wherever podcasts are played. It means a lot. Shoot, how am I going to get back on track to do this episode? And honestly, I'd love to see this little baby podcast take off. And every single 5-star review helps. Thanks, Christy. I love you. Now, there may inherently be some overlap between last week's episode and today's episode, simply because I asked for the Q&A before I even aired the episode, which, you know, rookie mistake, but here we are. So if you find me repeating myself with things that I said last week, then that just makes you a really good student of this podcast. Question number 1, Becky asks, curriculum you use for the girls versus Silas. For the last 4 years, we've used a curriculum called The Good and the Beautiful, which is a faith-based curriculum. We really enjoy it. And historically, we've used it for all of the subjects, for all the kids. So the girls have done it since 6th grade. Silas has done kindergarten first, and he is now in 2nd grade. And we really like their programs. And that includes language arts. Their language arts actually covers geography, poetry, art, like art history. A lot of things are worked into this. Grammar, writing, reading. So language arts for them is very all-encompassing, which we really do appreciate. Because then when it gets to touch on all those things that, like, of course we want our kids learning about incredible poetry or beautiful paintings, but that's not going to be the first thing that comes to mind when I'm trying to teach my kids. So I like this curriculum a lot. Not to mention that it's all pre-done. There is no prep work. I knew I would not be the mom that would sit down on a Sunday night and get all my curriculum ready for the week. It's not my style. At least I know myself well enough to know that and admit that out loud. They also have a really fun and really comprehensive math, but we did stop using their math after 6th grade for the girls because that's where they started to struggle a little bit more with concepts. And I'll tell you which math we switched over to them in just a moment. They also have history, a world history and a US history, multiple kinds of science, which is really fun, and then creative writing. They've got cursive. They've got a bunch of other add-ons that you can tack on should you choose to. Well, after a few years, we realized we're not very good at the tack-ons. Like history would fall to the wayside, science would fall to the wayside, and we would just be like, just get the bare minimum done, just language arts and math, okay? Just get that done. So this year we've chosen to join a local co-op, which meets every Friday. We typically would take Fridays off of homeschool anyways, so it didn't really interrupt our regular rhythm. But at the co-op, the girls are taking a lot of really great courses. History of the horse, that one's just kind of for fun because we love horses. The World at War, which is, more of a world history. Chemistry, intro to literature and short fiction, and Spanish, intro to Spanish. Silas is also taking a handful of classes over there. He's doing Bible drill where he's doing Bible, verse memorization. He's doing explore centers, which is just a real tactile fun thing. I mean, he's in 2nd grade, so we're not really expecting him to come home learning the US presidents quite yet. Reading with rhythm, where they have boomsticks and maracas as they read, which is great because it's helping him with his phonics, it's helping him with his pacing, it's helping him with syllables. And in fact, he was really not looking forward to this class when we first got started. Now it's his favorite, which is so redeeming. I'm so excited for him. And then geography, and he is also taking a Spanish class as well. Oh, but the math. So for girls, when we hit 6th grade with them, and again, there is a lot of crossover from last week's episode, so I'm so sorry for repeating myself, but I also want to make sure I'm covering all my bases in case someone's new and missed that one. We hit a serious roadblock with Good and the Beautiful math. It took them 2 years to finish 6th grade math, and they just were so distraught, heartbroken, not really understanding the concepts. And so I saw someone online talking about Denison algebra and said that it was the most incredible algebra for her kids. And they had tried a couple different other curriculums. We had tried multiple curriculums. We settled on this. Mr. Denison is the one who teaches it. I love him. He is so kind. He is so, he explains things so well. There's a solutions manual. So one person asks, how the heck can you teach high school math? Well, first of all, I don't mind math. Calc trips me up a little bit, but algebra, got it. Geometry, got it. No problem. So I don't have an issue helping with it. And in fact, Common Core math, when all the parents were going absolutely hog wild, being like, how are you teaching kids this? That's how my brain naturally does math. That's how my brain adds and subtracts. I do the groupings naturally. So it was never really a difficulty for me to make that transition, which I don't know if any of you are like that. Does anyone else naturally do Common Core style math? Which basically it's instead of 7 plus 5, you would break the 7 down into 5 plus 2 plus 5. Put the 5 and 5 together, you get 10, and then 2 extra makes it 12. That's just what my brain naturally does. So math has never really been an issue. I was one of the gifted kids that never applied myself because I was afraid of failure and not being good at things. But I understood concepts and I could have done well in school if I actually applied myself. Okay, so that's the curriculum. Ooh, this is a good one. Regrets you have with homeschooling, things you've learned. I had to unlearn regular school structure. I had to give myself the grace to be you know what? Let's play hooky today. Let's just take the day off. Because I am very entrepreneurial minded. I'm very goal oriented. So for me to just be let's play hooky, or you know what, I'm gonna let you skip that section, or different things like that I could make those choices. We chose this lifestyle. We chose to do this schooling because it's supposed to be less stressful and it's supposed to be more fun and more condensed. And that way we can get through our subjects and just live life a little differently. That's, half the appeal of doing homeschooling. But for a while, I still kind of felt like we had to hit these markers and we had to get the book completed and we had to. And it took me, honestly, quite a while. I would say over a year to really kind of go, why? Why do we have to? Well, for a season, it was because we weren't sure if the girls wanted to attend regular high school or not. They don't want to miss out on all the opportunities like dances and football games and whatnot. But now that they're experiencing the co-op, I think they're going to be okay not going. to regular high school. They're like, this is a lot. We're exhausted at the end of the day. It's a lot more work than we were anticipating. So I think we might be not doing formal high school. We'll still leave that open as an option. But if they are going to attend, then we want to make sure that they're on track with their peers, right? And, we don't want them to enter in and feel like they're behind or to actually be behind in some courses. So that's been our barometer for a while. But with Silas, it's like, you know what? The kid's playing outside. He's digging in the dirt. I don't care if we only do language arts today or we only do math today. He's very sharp with math. He honestly can skip entire sections, lesson after lesson, just because he's got it so easily that he almost gets bored with it. So that was another thing that I had to kind of relearn is like, don't feel like you have to do every single step of this. Parent the kid in front of you. Teach the kid in front of you. So if he's acting like he's done, he's like tapped out, he's bouncing, he's not paying attention. One, has he eaten? Does he have any calories that he's actually going off of right now? Or two, does he need a break? Does he need to go blow some steam off and we can come try to do this again later? Three, do we just need to call it for the day? So kind of relearning the expectations that were self-imposed. I could take those off. I didn't have to enforce those. So that was a regret for me, but I also feel like I had to go through that process. It's not like I could have just turned the switch off because, gosh, you guys, I love producing a lot of content. I am constantly thinking of new business ideas, which, by the way, if you haven't seen my merch, you should probably check it out. I'll leave it linked in the show notes. It's my favorite. I'm obsessed with it. TillDeathTradingCompany.com. I actually probably should spend a little bit more time promoting that business. Any hoodles. It's hard to take life at a slower pace for me. And I don't want my kids to think that they have to operate at the pace that I think I have to operate at. So I was relearning that. Like, what standard are we holding them to? And why? They're doing fantastically. And they're right on track with all their peers. It's just learning to slow down. You know me, though. You know I can't even talk slow. I've had so many people on my main channel be like, could you slow down, please? And I'm like, I don't know how. Next question, will the girls be homeschooled through high school? I think so. I think that's the case. If we stay at this pacing, they are set to graduate at the end of their junior year, which is nuts. So that'd be really cool. So like I said, they are absolutely on track and we will hit all of the things that they need to hit per Texas state guidelines to have them graduate early if they want to. And if they don't, they can continue to pursue education. They can keep going to the co-op. We've got options in front of us, but if they decide that they want to graduate their junior year and get a job and start saving up, totally fine with us. We're just going to kind of play that part by ear. How do you explain to friends/family that you're homeschooling when no one else is? Well, you just got to pick your why. Why are you doing it? And you can either come at it from like a negative thing, like we want to avoid this in public school, or a positive thing. I like my children. I want to spend time with my children. I think that homeschooling sounds like a fantastic way to do that. Like genuinely, from me to you, I love my kids. I love spending time with them. Now don't get me wrong. I don't mind when they're gone. I don't mind breaks. I don't mind any of that. But I like teaching them. I like hanging out with them. I don't mind them being here all the time. I think they're fun. My mom used to say this all the time and it stuck with me. I've never met an age I didn't like. So sometimes, in my opinion, leading with the positive reasons why kind of removes the argument, anything they might say as a comeback. So if you start with the negative, well, the school system, blah, 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 you could, find yourself getting some more of the, well, I went through the system and I turned out fine, which, by the way, I went through the system and I turned out fine. Okay. I just like my kids and I like homeschooling and I like the flexibility that it gives us and I like the slow mornings that it gives us. So find your why. And ideally find a positive one, because it's a lot harder to argue with. How do you manage the different ages/grades at the same time? Here is why I love The Good and the Beautiful, because their history and their science are meant to be taught family style. So it's set up in such a way that the young kids can understand, the older kids can understand as well. And then the older kids on some of the subjects have additional journals or additional work afterwards. So you can kind of just bring everyone to the table and work through it. Talk about the history lesson, talk about the science, do the experiment together. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But like I said, we were really bad at sitting down and doing that. And obviously now we are supplementing that through co-op. So how we usually do it is in the morning, I sit with Silas and I do language arts and math with him, while the girls are simultaneously doing language arts and math at the kitchen table. So him and I are usually sitting at the couch in the living room and they're right there. So I'm there to answer questions, but he gets my sole focus. Once I'm done with him, I can then go over to them and answer more specific questions, help them through things, help them with comprehension, etc. So I find that if I can block it in that way, help the youngest first, give the older ones something independent to work on while you're helping the younger ones, that stacking tends to work out really nicely because by the time you're done with the youngest, then they can skedaddle off and go do something fun while the oldest are still working on their items and you can help them with that. So that's kind of how the pacing works well for us, but we also have really big age gaps. Not intentional, but oh well, here we are. All right, this is a 3-parter. What the adult portion of homeschooling looks like logistically, as in the mental framework, timeline, big picture of the structure. Also, what does it look like starting at the beginning of a child who's schooling / how to? Okay, so mental framework, big picture, wrote it off. Good and the beautiful, pre-done. Even if you don't want a faith-based curriculum, getting something pre-done is a game changer for me. Sometimes I'm like, I would rather throw money at this than try to figure it out from scratch. Like, don't get me wrong, I like making bread from scratch, or chicken stock, but not homeschool curriculum. No, that sounds cute and it sounds romantic, but it also sounds exhausting. So yeah, figure out a system that works best for you. And for me, it's not inventing things from scratch. So that way the mental load is so much less. It's just a matter of checking their schoolwork at the end of the day or at the end of the week. As far as the timeline, I've kind of explained this. We have really slow mornings. I do language arts and math with Silas first, the 2nd grader, and then we'll go on to help the freshmen if they need any help with anything. Big picture timeline. We are usually doing schooling. Well, ideally we'd be doing schooling for about 28 to 30 weeks. But again, because I'm only working with like a handful of children, my own children, we can go through topics a lot faster as opposed to a group of 30 students who will need a lot more time potentially to learn it or a lot more attention from their teacher to learn it, etc. There's obviously going to be, it's going to go faster if there's less kids that are learning. Also, what does it look like starting at the beginning of a child's schooling / how to? Again, I cannot say this enough. Good and the Beautiful is just like a open and go curriculum that just simplified everything, made it a no-brainer for us. And also getting started with Silas with reading. I had to let go of this idea that he should be reading by 5. Some kids are great at it and some kids are not. And he does not like to not be good at things. I wonder where he got that from. Me. He doesn't want to be bad at reading. And so last year was hard. Last year he was really kind of pushing back on it. So I had to really rework where I was at mentally and be like, all right, dude, you got it. Don't worry about it. And throughout the summer, he would just look at these signs and just read them. Be like, oh, that sign says blah, blah, blah. I'm like, did you just read that? He needed more time to get mentally ready to do it in his head. He wanted to be able to read it in his head instead of practicing it out loud because that part was embarrassing for him or he didn't want to do it wrong. He still needs to do those things, right? Like he still needs to do things that makes him uncomfortable, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be an excellent reader like some other kids might be at his age. It turns out after the summer, he's doing phenomenally. But on paper, he's a 2nd grader. And a lot of kids read a lot earlier. So as far as getting started is concerned, pick a curriculum that works and then just be flexible with your expectations. I love this. What's the biggest myth about homeschooling that you found to be untrue? That they won't be socialized. First of all, y'all have seen my kids. Although arguably they've been on a lot less vlogs recently. The girls are a little bit older. I want to give them grace and space if they don't want to. Of course, you're going to see them a lot during Vlogmas. They still exist and they don't not want to be on camera. It's just I want to make sure that they feel confident to get on camera. Now they're thinking about things like their outfit and what their hair looks like. So I just want to give them grace and space to see what they'd like to do. So I'm going to tell you a little story real quick. We took the girls to a friend's house for a sleepover, which we don't typically do. That's a whole story for another time. Brought the girls to drop them off for the early part of the sleepover. And the girls come in and they shake the mom's hand and they squat down and they're petting the dogs and they're lively and they're engaging in conversation. And there are 3 other girls there besides the birthday girl who are literally sitting or standing against a wall, not making eye contact and not speaking with any of us. And of course, this is like just one sample study, like one case study. I'm not saying that all teenagers are like this or all preteens are like this, but here are our kids being like, hi, how are you? What's your name? And they're barely making eye contact. They're not really responding. So just as and again, this could just be this batch of girls, right? Maybe this girl really kind of collects shy people or quiet people around her. I know that happens, but our kids are beautifully socialized because in a regular school setting, they have one adult that they're talking to and a bunch of peers. With a homeschool setting, they're talking with a sibling or 2 and then a parent the whole time, someone who is speaking to them as an adult with adult language, one-on-one. Oh, I shouldn't say adult language. That sounds inappropriate. Our kids are fine. Our kids are totally fine. We have church, we have youth group, we have activities outside of that. The girls were doing horseback riding for a long time. We took a little break from that for now. Silas has soccer. We also now have co-op. We've got homeschool friends that come over. In fact, we've hosted a homeschool group that comes here every once in a while just to check out farm life. They're totally socialized. They do great. And frankly, I'm not that worried about it. The only thing I want to be attentive of is the girls attending stuff like dances and or football games. So I want to make sure they're connected enough in the youth group to be able to go with friends through there should an opportunity arise. And then there's this question. What is a legitimate homeschool stereotype based on your experiences? They always look a mess. Sometimes I'll look at my girls and be like, when's the last time you washed your hair? And they'll be like, I don't know. They're always in pajamas. They're always looking feral. You know, something's always got a stain on it. Now, of course, if we leave the house, my little fashionistas love to get dressed and throw a nice little hat or a cute little outfit. Silas loves to get dressed as well. But on the day-to-day, no ma'am, we're looking rough, which is probably another reason why they're not on vlogs as much anymore, because, there's only so much stained tie-dye that the eyeballs can take. Can a household where both parents work outside the home still homeschool? Parentheses, co-op. This is a fantastic question. My neighbor turned dear friend. I can't believe that we found this family that lives 2 doors down. That is absolutely perfect. I'm obsessed with them. The wife is probably very quickly becoming one of my best friends. I don't think I've told her that. She's probably listening to this podcast. Hi, Katie. I adore you. She's a great example of this because she is a speech therapist and she has an office at her home, but she also would work outside of the home as well. And she has a couple days a week, I think, where she's still doing that. And her husband works outside the home as well. And they hire a nanny who comes in to help out with the kids, to do the homeschooling with the kids. So when she's home, I'm not quite sure what their day-to-day structure looks like, but she still has, I think she works, I don't know. Katie, are you 30 hours a week? Are you 40 hours a week? She works a lot. She works a great amount, and they still find a great balance that works for them. And yes, that does mean bringing someone else in to the environment like this to help support on off days. A great option for this, if you are working full time, would potentially be to do a charter school that does 2 to 3 days a week. And then on the off days, you could have a nanny or a babysitter watch the kids, hang out with them, and help them with their schoolwork. Now, that might take away from some of the positives that some people see when it comes to homeschooling, spending time with your kids, being the one to be the person to educate them, not sending them into the school system. However, if you have even a handful of those ideas, regrets, issues with that current setup, then doing something like this will really help to alleviate that. This would be a great instance for having a pre-done curriculum, so you're not having to set it up, show it to your nanny, have the nanny then run those things. So that could be really helpful. But they're a great example of that. Both working parents. Technically, Katie's office is just outside of the home and the kids don't come into the office, so she's not actively watching them. So, I think getting creative with something like this could be a great opportunity for those who want to pursue that, for sure. Homeschool versus Christian school thoughts. I don't know. I've never been to a Christian school. I can only speak on behalf of public school. They're still completely different, right? I almost view a Christian school as more akin to a public school because the setting's still the same. The timing's still the same. The pacing of the day is still the same. The classroom size is oftentimes pretty similar. It's not like you have a specific tutor who's taking your kid through all of their lessons, right? So while there is more of the religious aspect of things, which we are Christians, we are believers, I don't necessarily see a direct correlation other than implementing some faith-based principles in the teaching. But yeah, plus private school is extremely expensive. Style, where to begin? What age to start? Style, lazy. Where to begin? Good, the beautiful. Or some other pre-done curriculum. Age to start, whenever you want. There are people who do unschooling, which make me, I couldn't do that. Unschooling is basically the process of deconstructing what school looks like, which I kind of did a little bit mentally, but we still do a proper school structure with our day. I just had to let go of the milestones that were implemented in my brain from public school, when they need to happen and what needs to be covered and what subjects they need to learn. That's the part that I had to kind of chill a little on. And our next question is how to make it no/low pressure. You got to do it with your brain. For me, like I talked about earlier, I had to go through the process of depressurizing the situation. I brought a lot of heat, a lot of energy, a lot of here's the expectation to the conversation, and I had to make a conscious choice on what I was valuing in the situation. Did I want kids to hold up a GED or a high school diploma or whatever we're going to get at the end of this and be like, look, I made it. I conquered all the subjects I was told to conquer. Or do I want to create kids who are virtuous, kind, well-spoken, well-mannered, can carry on a conversation in normal, polite society? Well-rounded enough to carry on a robust conversation, sure. Intelligent enough in their math and in their writing that should they choose to pursue a career that required either one of those, that they would excel. Yeah, I think I'd rather have that than A's. So honestly, the way you make it low pressure or no pressure is your own mindset. Now, do not get me wrong. We have struggled tremendously with time management last week and this week because we're re-entering back into it. So I'm not saying there isn't pressure associated with this. There definitely is. There have been tears over the last 2 weeks. I will not lie to you. And some of them are mine. So that's when I just need to take a few and remind myself of why we're doing this and what the real expectations are here. Ooh, what's the balance of instructional time versus workbook/homework time? I don't do any instructional work with the girls at all whatsoever. They are 100% independent. They do work together and they'll have conversations about it and they're in the room with me. So should they run into an issue with the connotation of the word, I'll be, you guys know, I used to read the dictionary for fun. So, I love words. So the only instructional time I have is with Silas, which is usually like an hour tops. Well, no. Because the first part of what we do is like a teaching, and the second part is independent work for him because he's now old enough to read the instructions and follow suit. I'll just be there should he need any help or encouragement or, to watch him and make sure he doesn't get distracted. So as far as my physical instruction time, I'm literally reading the directions and like Good and the Beautiful tells you what to read straight out of the book for maybe 30 minutes tops a day, maybe 40. No, I think it's more like 15 minutes per subject with him. It's unreal how easy this is. He was done at noon. It's now 3:30. He's either playing with his cars or cleaning his room. He's doing great. He's living his best life. What does the typical homeschool day look like? Okay, I covered this in the last one, but let's just do like a brief little hello. So I get up in the morning, drink my coffee. The kids finish up chores. It's Olivia and Isabella have animal chores in the morning. We probably need to figure out implementing some for Silas in the morning as well. They don't get screen time in the morning at all. They don't get any screen time until all of their work is done and their screen time chores are done. So they have specific chores they need to accomplish to be able to even have fun on their iPad, or the girls have iPads, or to watch something on TV or whatever. So they'll get up, do animal chores, eat some breakfast, and usually it's a pretty slow start. This last few weeks, it's been too much of a slow start. So that's where we're feeling the pressure on that one. We're trying to get the start time a little earlier. Today we started at 10, which was earlier than yesterday, which was 11. And I say we, I mean the girls. Silas and I started earlier. It just was one of those things where I kept looking at being like, what are you doing? Why are you not getting stuff done? Where are you going? So while I'm working on language arts and math with Silas, I let him choose which one he wants to do first, whatever he's in the mood for. The girls will work on language arts and math together, but independently of me. So we are sitting all in the same open room. Silas and I are either on like the cozy chairs or the couch in the living room, and the girls are sitting at the kitchen table. So like all in that little mini great room. Language arts for them usually takes about an hour and a half. Math, I would say probably about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how many lessons they want to cover. So I read through the prompt that I have with Silas while the girls are working independently. Then while he does his independent stuff, I get up and I'll clean the kitchen. I'll wipe stuff down. I'll do some pickup. I try to take advantage of that time of like, okay, let's get this moving. So I'm here, but I'm also productive with this time. And then either give him a break in between subjects if I feel like he needs it. If I feel like he's just like antsy or not paying attention or all over the place and he just needs to go move his body, he can go. But if he's good and mentally there, then we'll jump into the second subject. I'll do my 15 minutes of talking, reading, lesson teaching with him. And of course, I'll add my own stuff onto it. It's not just like reading it off like a robot. I'll try to make it more relatable if I feel like something needs a little bit of work. Anyways, do the teaching, let him do independent practice. And this is when I start shifting my gears towards, okay, baby's about to go down for a nap. She goes down at about noon. Figuring out what lunch is, and then getting ready to go into go mode for, showering, hair, makeup, etc., whatever I need to do to be able to sit down and film if I'm filming for the day. So I usually don't get ready until after 12. That's when Silas is done. The girls will usually work for another hour or so. They're done at about 1 p.m. That's our typical lunchtime. Sometimes it's a little bit later, sometimes it's a little bit earlier, depending on when they finish. And now it's just independent free time for Silas. He can go hang out with the neighbors that I mentioned earlier. He can play outside. He can play with toys. That boy, if you leave him alone long enough, his imagination just goes wild. And after that is when the girls switch over to co-op homework. And that's the one that we need to figure out because they're working from like last week we had one night where they were working till 9 p.m. So when I say time management is our big focus right now, it's our big focus right now. And last question, how to choose a curriculum for a kindergartner, but but also all the way to a 12th grader. I can't speak highly about this curriculum enough. Good and the Beautiful is fantastic. I mean, it doesn't require that I spend a lot of time with my kids every single day, even though, I love them and I love helping them and I love being there, but it's not 6 hours of me instructing them. It's not 6 hours of me teaching them. It's little pockets of what I teach them and then them implementing them themselves, which of course with younger kids, you're going to need to be a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more attentive, but also proportionally, their lessons are going to be astronomically smaller. So if you were thinking about getting into this and you have a whole splay of ages, I would recommend getting a pre-done curriculum first. Start there. See if you like it. You can always make adjustments. You don't have to keep using the curriculum if it doesn't suit you. Or if you find that you want to add on your own stuff, add on your own stuff. There are no rules. Well, some states have requirements of things that you have to cover or that they have to be aware of and or learn. Texas is pretty wide open on that one, which is great. Makes life super easy. Read forums. Ask questions, read reviews, join a Facebook group. Of course, both Reddit and Facebook groups are quite scary sometimes because people have opinions. But if you're looking for a pre-done curriculum, those would be the places that I would go to see what people suggest. And don't feel like you have to use the same curriculum for all of your kids. Just because we found one that works really well for our family doesn't mean it's always going to gel or work well for you guys. Like Dennis and Algebra for the girls, right? The Good and the Beautiful math no longer served them. Also this year, I'm hyper aware that the math might be a little bit too easy for Silas. I'm sensing him getting a little bored. I'm sensing him feel like this is too easy. So I'm hoping that once we get a few more lessons in, we'll start implementing a few more concepts. That's going to push him a little bit more because when that boy is bored, he just gets over it real quick. I don't think he realizes that he's bored. I don't think he realizes that he enjoys being challenged in these subjects. If I asked him, he'd be like, absolutely not. But like, this is one of the great parts about homeschooling is that I just get to learn so many things about my kids. And I get to watch them grow and like figure out who they are through this process in a way that, might have taken me longer if they went to regular school. It might not have, but I get to know them so much more. I get to watch them and guide them. I think that my role as their mom is to help them with emotional management, time management, emotional regulation. I think my husband does the fun and then the punishment. Not that I don't punish and not that I'm not fun, and not that he doesn't help with emotional regulation. It's just, him and I were talking about this the other day. He's like, these are just our strong suits, right? Like to the point where sometimes I'm like, whoa, you might want to pump the brake on that punishment, or whoa, you're being a little too silly right now. I need you to dial it back. Like we have teenage daughters now. Like you can't just like tease and tease and tease, right? And reverse of that, of course, he's like, hey, you should probably be a little bit more heavy-handed on that punishment. I'll be like, okay. But my job, my role that I choose to fulfill is emotional management. And that plays itself out in a whole myriad of ways. That's watching my kids as they do their homeschool to see if they're stressed out, to see if they're overwhelmed, encouraging breaks, encouraging food. Their brain doesn't work as well if there isn't food in their bodies. Encouraging to get outside, get some grounding in, get some sunshine on their eyeballs. Encouraging them to just get the job done for the sake of their mental sanity, right? Not everything needs to be A+, because guess what? C's get degrees, baby. It's all about learning how to handle and tackle subjects that they don't like, that they might feel overwhelmed by. How do they process that emotionally? And emotional management, I think like I could have a whole episode on this because I think that's down to how a house looks, how it feels, how clean it is, clutter, the availability of easy food during a stressful day. Those are all the things that I think of to make sure that the emotional homeostasis of our house stays, pretty even keeled. Yeah, I don't think I've ever even phrased it like that out loud. Just like, that's my job. That literally, laundry. So no one gets stressed out by the loads of laundry. They have fresh clothes and they don't have to worry about it. Grocery shopping. So they don't have to worry about it. So I can pick easy things or fun things when they're feeling stressed out to help them feel motivated. Sometimes they'll be like, all right, let's just get the junk food. Just get it. Just go pick one. As they were overwhelmed for homeschool, the co-op last week, 2 weeks ago, we were at the grocery store and I told them all to go pick out the crummiest snack they wanted, whatever they wanted, and just like go, baby, because life's all about balance. You know what I mean? And that was the night before co-op, packing their lunches. That was the thing that they were like, oh my gosh, I get to eat this tomorrow. This is so exciting. That is my job as their mom, is to make sure it's help them regulate, help them with emotional management, help them to set up little wins and little successes. And yeah, wow, I'm impressed with my own profoundness right now. Anyways, that's all we have for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening, or if you're over on YouTube, thank you for watching. As always, you can find this podcast wherever podcasts are played, but you know that because you're already listening to it / watching it. If you feel like leaving a review, like Aunt Christy did, please feel free to. Cutie patooties, I love you so much. Say it back. Okay, and until next week, Bye, guys.